so sorry. Yet again, we had another day of technical difficulties. That is the reason why we are late again, but we are back. We're here for another episode of A Better Me Equals a Better We podcast. This is episode 3. And this episode's title is Screen Time, and Screen Time and how it's affecting our children. That's the title of this particular episode. But at the same time, screen time does not only affect our children, it's bigger than that. Screen time affects our young adults as well as the adults as well. And I have 4 panelists with me who's going to help me dive into this topic that I believe is very vital, not just for myself and my family, or even people that don't have kids, because again, this is something that affects all of us, regardless of age range. Because of the timing, we're just going to jump right into it. So I'm going to start with each of my panelists, have them introduce themselves, and just tell them a little bit about themselves. So let's start with Dominique. Why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, Dominique, Dominique Jones. So I have my MSW in mental health, so in clinical social work, which would be mental health, so ranging from 3-year-olds all the way up to about 60, or whenever. If you're human, you have a mind and you need help with your mental, I can do it. I have been in this field for maybe, I want to say, about 8 years now. So I don't really have much to say. I kind of want to dive into this topic. It sounds very interesting. So that's pretty much about everything about me, outside of being from Brooklyn, of course, all day.
That's always a highlight. I keep telling people being from Brooklyn is like a nationality. Like, being from New York City in general is a nationality. Right. Because when you talk to people that's in New York City, we real big on where we from, like in New York City. So wherever you from in Brooklyn, it's like a nationality. But when you go somewhere else, it's just New York in general. So, but that's definitely true. So, how about Cam? Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Cam, and I work on the other side of things. I work in TV advertising. I'm not a professional at this topic, but I find it very interesting, and I'm looking forward to being here and talking with you all tonight.
Nice. And I had to make sure that I brought in some real professionals, some full-time parents, just so you guys can definitely feel like all of the information that you get is accurate, and that I'm covering all the spectrum. So Jose and Daisy, why don't you guys introduce yourself to our viewers?
Well, I'm Jose, this is Daisy. We've been together for about 8-9 years now. We have 2 beautiful kids, Joseph, who's 5, gonna be 6, and my daughter Jamie, she's 3, she's gonna be 4. And the parent life is quite challenging at times, especially in regards to this topic. It's something that we're dealing with now. So I feel like this is a great conversation to get that conversation started about screen time and how to manage it as a parent when you're not around your kid all the time, or when you're around your kid, what are the steps you're doing to make sure that, that we live in a day and age where, social media, phones, tablets, there's so many things that I know when I was a kid and Daisy was a kid that we didn't have any of these things growing up. So trying to deal with that and manage it is different because our parents didn't have to go through that. So it's kind of like figuring out as you go. So, but that's about it. I love being with the kids and then, spend as much time as I can with them and try to get them to do other things and, be on tablets and things of that nature. So that's about it. I mean, if you want anything else, ask away. But yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, no. Everybody, if you guys have an extra phone, or if you're not on your phone, can you check your phone and see if we're live on Facebook? Because I got a few people that said that they didn't see the live stream. I see it on mine, but maybe because I'm streaming it. So I just want to make sure that this is available to everybody. that everybody's getting a chance to see it.
Is it on your page, your personal page?
Oh, I know why. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta edit the privacy. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. There we go. So our viewers just missed the whole intro because I had it private. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm not gonna let you guys wait to watch it over. So I'm gonna let my panelists introduce themselves again. If you're watching this at a later time, you could just skip past this part. But for the people that are just tuning in live, we started just a little late because we had some technical difficulties. This is not something that's gonna happen regularly. And then also my mistake when I started the live video, I had the video private. I'm not sure why the setting was that way, but that's why you guys weren't able to see it. But we are back. A Better Me Equals a Better We podcast, episode number 3. This episode is entitled Screen Time, and it's just about how screen time is affecting our children. And we're going to be referencing a article by a world-renowned psychiatrist, Victoria L. Dunkley. And I brought some friends to help talk about the topic with me. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my panelists again. Dominique, why don't you introduce yourself?
Not a problem. So for those that missed it, Dominique, I have a master's in social work, which is clinical social work, covering pretty much all the field of mental health, ranging from children at the age of 3 all the way up into, the elders that need some help in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And then I left off with saying, I'm from Brooklyn. So I wanted to make that very clear, even though this accent is very strong, I am still from Brooklyn.
Let them know. I'm telling you, it's a nationality. It is. And Cam, why don't you introduce yourself for the people that may not have gotten a chance to hear your introduction?
So I'm Cam. I work on the TV side of things. I work in TV advertising. And I'm excited to be here and talk with all you and hear from the experts on the topic.
All right. And for our 2 experts, the full-time parents who are doing this every day, day in and day out, we have Daisy and Jose. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves for the people that may not have seen it?
Well, hello again. I'm Jose. This is Daisy. Like I said, we've been together about 9 years now. We have 2 beautiful kids. My son Joseph, who's 5, and my daughter Jamie, who's 3. And parenting has been, quite the challenge in this day and age when it comes to screen time and, making sure that our children are not only focusing on the tablets, because again, like I said, growing up, we didn't have those things. We're playing outside or playing, with their friends and family and cousins. So growing up in this age with the children and how social media and technology is definitely a learning experience with us on how to really manage it. It can be helpful and it can be harmful. So just finding that right medium is what we're trying to do every day. And I'm from Brooklyn as well.
Let's throw that out there. Now, listen, I just want to let all of the viewers know I did not try and do an all Brooklyn panel. I believe Cam is from
Yes,
Nashville.
you did. Yes, you did.
I did not.
I'm from Brooklyn.
She's from Queens, so.
Right. So look, see, we don't have an all Brooklyn panel. That's not what I was trying to do. It just happened to fall that way. And if you would like to be a part of the next episode or be a panelist at any point, feel free to message me. I'm more than happy to look at those things because again, like I said in my previous episode, this is not a platform where I'm going to pick a particular topic and talk about it as if what I say is law. I like to have different perspectives. I want it to be an open conversation where we have a piece of material that we'll reference, but we'll talk about it in conversation where maybe somebody might learn something from my perspective or maybe another perspective or another perspective. So, better me, better we, right? So just diving right into it, because I know we're a little bit behind on time. In this particular article, was entitled, "Is Your Child Overstimulated from Too Much Screen Time?" And again, this article is about a world-renowned psychiatrist who's actually one of the leading psychiatrists in this particular topic of screen time, Victoria L. Dunkley. This particular article can be found on Psychology Today, the website. Now, the very interesting part about this article is that this article was actually written in 2017. So this actually has been an ongoing issue. This is not something that's just started, but definitely something that needs to be talked about, especially now with everything being virtual, and all of us, not just our children, having to spend a lot more time on the screen. And then when we add into that recreational screen time, it can be a lot for them. So this particular psychiatrist came up with a diagnosis that was called ESS, which stands for electronic screen syndrome. And it's basically just describing high levels of arousal in the frontal lobe of your brain, or hyperarousal of your brain. And in the article, she actually gives a questionnaire of about 27 to 30 questions about your child's behaviors that they may be exhibiting, things that may be going on in their lives, or things that you're noticing that your child is doing that we may think is linked to something else, but is actually linked to excess screen time. So I thought like just that in general was very eye-opening for me. I actually have, 2 children of my own. So, and I've began to implement these things into my household and saw a change, not just in the way that they wanted to watch TV, but in their behavior as well. So this questionnaire that she has, she actually breaks it down into a few different subgroups, where one group would be hyperarousal, their focus, their behavioral social skills, and things of that sort. And I want to start with just the hyperarousal part. And one of the first questions that she poses is, how much, or does your child seem to be revved up all the time, or just like extra excited, like they got a pound of sugar and they just woke up? So I'll start with Dominique, being a therapist of sorts. How often do you see that when dealing with children, that it seems like they're quote unquote revved up all the time?
Yeah, it's very often. I know a lot of people they look for doctors to be so deep sometimes. So they look for like doctors and mental health therapists to be like, oh, this diagnosis and and it connects to the brain of this sort. But sometimes it's just pretty self-explanatory. I know that I had a client one time who the parent was just like, he's always hyper and excited, and he's always wanting to like shoot people and different things, and he plays with these toy guns, and that's all he does. And I'm like, well, what is he watching? What is he seeing? And she's like, well, she does watch this show and they shoot a lot of people and different things. And I'm like, that might be it. You might want to maybe turn that down a little bit. So it's very common to see a lot of hyper arousal when you see extended times of play. Some people will say 2 hours. Over 2 hours is a bit long. Some professionals would say. Others will say, 2 hours is okay. You can do a little bit more. It's really up to you. I think every child is definitely different, but for a general consensus, yes, it's very common to see longer screen time kind of showcasing in very hyper behavior, for many reasons. It could be the screen, it could be the actual show. It's many reasons.
Right, right. And so Cam, you being from the TV aspect, how much do you know in regards to the way that they tailor these shows to kind of grab their attention? And do you think that there's anything that's being done on the other side of things that's kind of, I guess, promoting this behavior, or something that could be tying into that?
Absolutely. So the author who actually wrote this article wrote several other articles that are very similar in content. And one thing that she mentioned in another article that ties into what you were just asking is the fact that, the creators of these shows and these games, they actually sit down with psychologists and they use techniques to kind of manipulate the viewers into wanting to stay tuned and wanting to sit there and see to the end. So that it's definitely something that's well thought out from the other end of things.
Got you. So I think that that's something that's very common, like just in general. I see a lot of kids, like they're very excited, very revved up, so to say. But they're like that in the house. Like they don't want to go outside. They want to stay in front of the screen and just yell at it, run around in circles, jump from the couch to the floor to the couch, like all day. Like that's just what they do. And another thing that I noticed is when kids are playing these games, and I thought it was just my kid, right? So I'm speaking from a bit of experience. I have a 10-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm talking about my 10-year-old now. I thought it was just my kid at one point. Like he would play these games, and like if he lost, like the amount of emotion that he showed was like, wait, what just happened? Are you okay? Like at first I would run in the room like, wait, is everything all right? Did you hurt something? And he's like looking at the game system like it did something wrong to him, like, ah! Like, and he would have like these really bad meltdowns, like and I thought it was just, but that was another thing that I saw in the article, like concerning like a child's behavior is just the way that they react to television, or maybe like their favorite character, you know, got hurt or something like that, and their reaction to these shows and these video games are like really exaggerated. So Jose and Daisy, you know, just going to you guys, like how often do you see something like that? Like, do you feel like something like that is common? And if so, what are some things that you guys do to kind of try to help with that?
Well, and my son Joseph, my oldest, he's the same way. If he loses in a video game, he'll like flip the switch, and he's more so of a quiet kid to himself. But something about the loss of the video game will bring something out of him where he gets upset, he's frustrated. He'll start crying. He'll throw a fit. He'll have a meltdown. But what's interesting about Joseph is though that he's like that with everything. So even in school as well. So he already has an issue with like trying to be a perfectionist. So if he doesn't get something right, it angers him. So him having so much passion for the game, it just amplifies how upset he is because he feels like he's doing something wrong. And, you know, it passes, but, you know, he'll get mad at the game, or I've seen him like throw the game down. And then that's when it's like, okay, you know, I have to take it away because, you know, you're getting too frustrated over something that's just a game, or, you know, like you're changing your whole behavior. So then when you see changes in behavior, then that's when, you know, we see certain triggers. That's okay. We got to reduce it. We got to take it away, speak to him and just let him know, like, he can't react like that based off of a video game, you know?
Right. And I like something that you said that I think is very key, like for people that are listening, the passion that he has for the game, which is causing some of these behaviors. And this might be like somebody else's child, like they have so much passion for what they're watching. They're so connected to it that they get that upset when it doesn't particularly go their way, or the show doesn't go the way that they want it to in that particular episode. And we all know that for the most part, the good guy always wins. So we looking like, bro, he gonna come back in the next episode, just relax. Like, but the passion that he has for it now as parents, how can you guys now take that same passion that you know that you've recognized that he has and now apply that in other places?
So as far as his passion, I try to find things that he's really into, and like he's into math. He likes math and science. And sometimes math triggers those same things for him, where if he can't get a problem right or an equation right, he gets upset. So I try to kind of push his passion in a direction it's going to help him, you know, and not that video games is not going to help him, but, you know, to let him see that, you know, like, you're going to sometimes fail and you're not going to go your way, and it's okay. So that's what I try to teach him. You know, I'll sometimes even play the game with him to see that I lose if I can't figure something out, so he can see that I'm not getting frustrated. It's okay to have the passion. It's okay to want to do it, but you kind of want to, you know, scale it down to having him interact with that thing so much, you know? So what I'll do is I'll remove the game from him, right? And he's not to the point where he'll ask me for it or he'll, you know, rage for it. the longer he goes without it, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, that's how it is for Joseph. So, he hasn't had his game for a while now, and he hasn't asked for it. But now his passion is in other things. So now he's focusing more on the other things he likes. So science and math, I've noticed that he's starting to focus more on that because he doesn't have the game. So now he's focusing and putting all his energy into those two things.
See, now that's great. Like, so, because from my personal experience, like with my 1-year-old, for example, at one point, the easiest thing to do for parents nowadays, because we just feel like at times we can be very busy, especially now with a lot of parents working from home. So you're kind of like 2 jobs at one time simultaneously, like, and a lot of parents having to go through things like that. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is to just put your kid in front of a TV, put your kid in the high chair, the playpen, put him in front of a TV, or tell your kid, when he's done with online learning, to just, all right, go ahead, go watch TV or go play the game, because you have so much other things to do, like work and then take care of the house and things of that sort. So for me, I noticed that my 1-year-old, he, besides myself and his mother, he didn't pay a lot of attention to other people. Unless, like when he was watching TV, you could call him a million times and he won't look your way unless it's my voice or his mom's voice. And then we decided to make the decision to say, okay, let's cut back on the screen time, partly because of this article a month or 2 ago. And we noticed a big difference in the way that he did certain things going forward, the way that he played with his toys, his interest in his toys, and the interest for other things grew once we took that away. So one of the things that I've noticed that kids that play a lot of video games, when they're not playing video games, the author poses a question like, has your child become defiant or disorganized? And something very small as being disorganized. I realize that some kids are very particular when it comes to the video games, but in everything else other than the video games, they probably not as particular, and they become really disorganized. So Dominique, how many times have you encountered not just a child or maybe even an adult where you felt like everything outside of their screen time, whether it was television or games or whatever, or what have you, where they were very particular about that? Like, I got to watch my show at this time. I know it come on. I can tell you what happened from season 1 to season 8. But when it came to other things in their life, they seem to be very disorganized in other places.
Yeah. So everything that this article talks about is definitely common. There have been a bunch of case studies, and a lot of it, if you look at the symptoms or the things that these reactions that she's bringing up, they kind of tie into like an ADHD diagnosis. So some people may kind of I don't want to say mistake it, because it's not necessarily a diagnosis just yet, but it sounds similar or overlaps with a lot of symptoms of like ADHD and even defiance, right? But the difference between ADHD and like a defiant disorder, like some type of like oppositional disorder or something like that, would be that ADHD, it's not necessarily that they're being defiant. It's really because, again, that hyperarousal, it's not allowing their mind to be grounded for a long period of time to be able to really hear what you're saying. So instead of it being I'm defiant, it's more of a, what did you say? Like, huh? I missed that type of situation. So I do see a lot of the disorganization concept. So I get a lot of kids who, again, a lot of screen time. I know TikTok is like a big thing with a lot of like kids now. So like if you ever go in Walmart and like, Bravo, wherever you at, New York, wherever you go, they'll be walking around like, and they're like just doing these random dances. And I'm like, bro, like, it's okay. But not realizing that that's on their mind. Those games, those things that they're passionate about, just like any of us, they're on their mind. Have you, like, I know adults, I know for us, it may be bills. We may not have TikTok, but we have bills, and it stays on your mind. So you're constantly like, how the heck am I gonna pay this bill? How am I gonna pay this bill? And your thought process is, what do I need to do? What is the action plan to get this bill paid? A lot of time for kids, just like us, it's the same thing. How do I get to get to the game as quick as possible, as soon as possible. How can I get over this? And a lot of it can come up as disorganized, but sometimes it can simply just be whatever I can do to kind of cut corners to get to that game or get to that piece of computer or whatever quicker, I'm going to do. And they'll try to figure out, they'll find a way to, cut those corners. So yeah, this organization is definitely something, but you gotta watch, because sometimes it's not disorganization. Sometimes it's really them cutting corners because they know they can cut corners so that they can get to something that they really enjoy.
Right. And that reminds me of something that you actually said, like before we started, like when we were kind of off air and you was talking about structure and our kids needing structure. Like that was something that's very important. So we talk about children possibly being disorganized. If parents are disorganized and the children lack a certain sort of structure in the home where it was like, okay, you can do this from this time, this to this time, or whatever the case may be, that can also lead to that, because what they see is what they do. Contrary to popular belief, I was once a kid, and I heard my parents say a lot of stuff, but I did more of what I saw them do versus what they told me to do. So Tora actually said in our comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I wanted to say something to what Jose has said, and I was probably, you probably saw me lipping because I'm very reactive. I'm a very expressive person. Saying that he role models, so he'll sit with his son and he'll play the game and he'll role model like, hey, look, I lost, but I'm okay. They need to see that. You have to role model behavior.
Right.
The old school, they'll be like, don't do what you see, do what I say. Don't do what you see me doing. But I mean, if you're telling me that, this is bad, if you're telling me too much candy is bad, but I see you every day eating candy, eventually I'm gonna grow up and be like, well, it can't be too bad because you're still alive, you're still living, so that role modeling is so important.
Right. And I also think, kind of to piggyback off of what Jose was saying, I think it's important, for parents to kind of show their children, because in most cases, the part of the brain can disassociate from the game and reality is not fully developed in children. So as parents, as older people, we can play the game, lose, and okay, it's like, okay, what's for dinner? But they're still thinking about, no, I gotta win. So I think that's a way to kind of overcompensate for the fact that their brain is not developed fully in that way just yet.
Right. And that's something very important that, when we look at this particular topic and children exhibiting behaviors, or let's just say the developing brain, because even younger, they're still developing. When we look at the developing brain just in general, and how it perceives certain things, we have to, when we look at our children and these behaviors, we have to come to it with the understanding that their brain is not where our brain is. So we can't treat them as if their brain is fully developed or as if they've gone through the things that we've gone through or learned the things that we've learned. So I think that was great from the both of you guys. Tora said in our comments that she said, right, that way you have more okay, well, we'll play the game together for a little while and then we'll go color or draw to get them away from the screen. So all right, let's do this now. Okay, and then we'll do this then. And I think that as a role model, as a parent, because some people are role models to children that are not their parents. So you may not be a child's parent and be like their biggest hero and they follow behind everything that you do. And if you are that to a child, a young adult, being able to put yourself in a position to say, okay, let's do this now, let's do this, and grow their interest in other things other than the screen. And Nikki said, with the way that parents work nowadays, it's easier to put them in front of the screen. It keeps them entertained while doing what we need to do. But I do believe we should try to create a balance. So, the same thing that we've all come to the consensus is that it has to be a balance. And for me personally, I believe that the balance should be a little bit more away from screen time. But of course, with things that are going on now, they have to be in front of the screen a lot more than usual. And Nikki also said parents cut corners too. That's where the screen time comes in. So, speaking to what I was saying earlier, you know what, I got to do this. Just go watch TV. Go sit in front of, go play your game and stuff like that. So definitely true. Davon Chambers said being their first role model is key. So like when we look at our children, right, we can't allow the screen to raise our children, right? I'm going to say that again. Not allow the screen to raise children. Just recently, I want to say maybe about a year ago, there was this video that was going around on YouTube, and I think it even made the news, where like it was popping up as a cartoon, and it was telling kids to do bad things to themselves and something crazy of that sort. And the video, it wasn't something that they were searching for. It was just based off of the things that they were watching. It was something that was coming up as like maybe like a next video or suggested video, and it looking like a cartoon. It was enticing to the kids, and they were watching it. I say that to say, as a parent or as a role model or just somebody who is in the care of a developing brain, we have to be aware of what's going on these screens, right? Because we can tell, you can tell your kids to sit in front of the screen and do this, but if you're in the other room cooking dinner and your child is on a tablet or something small or something of that sort, and you got one of those kids that like to build forts or tents and they under the, we don't know what they're watching. You don't know what kind of things they're consuming, what type of beliefs they have. All of these things look real to them because their brain is still developing, so it all looks like real life. So we have to make sure that we're aware of what's going on the general. So Cam, I want to ask you, just from a general perspective, has there ever been a point where you were worried that maybe like a child that you were around, maybe a child, a sibling or a child that you're, help raise, you felt like their interests in certain things were declining and their level of curiosity. So like they really weren't interested in anything other than the screen, and they just weren't curious about just life, like outside of their screen.
Absolutely. So I have an 11-year-old that I love in my life, and he is hooked on VR, virtual reality. And I won't lie, if you've never tried VR, it is pretty fun. You can really get lost in it. But I noticed over time, we would want to try to do different things like painting or maybe play board games, or as the weather gets nice, you want to go out, ride around, get some fresh air. And it was always a case of like, well, no, I want to stay and I just want to play VR. Or all day would go by and maybe he hasn't eaten, he doesn't even realize he's hungry because he's just so into the game. So I definitely I've noticed that in him for sure. And I think another thing I want to bring up is this author mentioned something that when games are created to kind of like drive the thing in your mind that says keep going, keep playing. Like it wants you to keep playing until the end of forever. So it's like there's never an end point. And one thing that the author said is that they try to make sure that the games kind of give you whatever you desire in life, right? Things even that you feel like you can't get in reality. So I think that it's kind of like setting them up. They're kind of set up in a way, and they're being manipulated in a way. And I know we were speaking about this before we went live about how, these games kind of give kids the same type of feeling that sitting at a casino gives them, sitting at a slot machine, like they just want to keep going and going. And the games have like lights and maybe rewards and just so many things to kind of feed that keep going, keep going, keep going. And it really just sets them up. It sets them up for failure.
And I like that, that casino comparison, because now shifting to like, let's say adults now, I would argue that social media is that for us. Like it gives us that casino feeling, that like that come back again, come again, come again. Like it gives us that kind of feeling where, and I say us as a general statement, it gives us that feeling where, I know at one point in my life, I would wake up and when I picked up my phone, I didn't even check for missed calls. I clicked Facebook. Like I didn't check to see if anybody called. I checked Instagram. Like or I click the last picture I posted and I'm like, oh, no more likes. Like, and until I realized, like, wait, this is a problem. Like, I got a missed call from my mother and I'm looking at my Facebook, my notifications, like this is crazy. Like I'm looking at my likes and my views and kids are like that now. Like Dominique mentioned, even with TikTok, like views and what's going on. And now with us being older, and our brains being a lot more developed, we have to now take heed of that because our addiction to our phones or our laptops or a particular show can also be what's leading to our children who now have the underdeveloped brains having excessive screen time, which is causing them to exhibit behaviors that are not going to lead to them being productive adults. So I think like for us as adults, we got to kind of check ourselves when it comes to screen time and not that we're passing off screen time to them just because we want to have a little extra screen time like ourselves. So Jose and Daisy, or the both of you guys can answer this one. Have you noticed, or was there ever a point where you felt like academically, like you guys noticed a change? So I know that you guys said that he likes math, he likes science, and and I've been around, both of your children. These are some of the smartest kids I've ever personally met, and they love learning. But have you guys ever been at a point where you felt like your child was having, or your children were having excessive screen time, and you notice a shift in their academics?
That actually happened recently with Joseph. He got a few new video games and he was so obsessed with them that he would want to rush or not do his work in class. And he'd just not do it, and because all he wanted to do was play the video game.
Again, it's similar to like what Dominique said earlier, like when they're gonna cut corners,
Yeah.
They're gonna cut the corners, right? And if I can, then I know that my dad's here and game faster. So then with right now moment, and he loves his Switch, and Nintendo Switch, that's his thing. He loves, he has a passion for it. And he likes these things called amiibos. They're like little figures and you can connect it to the Switch. That's what he likes. But it's probably going on 2 weeks now since we removed the Switch from him, and he's doing better in school. He doesn't ask for it.
He's doing math problems.
He's doing math problems for fun. He'll randomly ask me what's 10 plus 10 or 7 take away 5, because he's not focusing on the game. And then we also set the example that you're not going to get it back until you do better. And then even when you do better, you still may not get it back. And it's just not the video game. Kids these days love YouTube. So if it's not the Switch, it's the tablet. I want to go on YouTube, and then we gotta monitorize that and make sure he's on kids' YouTube and not on adult YouTube watching all types of videos. So, it is challenging, but as Trey said, and the rest of the people said in the comments as well, is that as parents we have to be on top of it. It's easy to say go to the screen, and if you had a long day of work, or you're just tired, you need a minute for yourself. But those minutes and those seconds, those could do more damage than help the kid, because you don't want the screen to raise them, like Trey wants. So you don't want the screen to raise your children. And we monitor it, we check little things that we do as parents that may or may not work for you, but we go through the history.
Yeah.
We make sure we see what they're watching, how long they're watching it for, what is their interest, because they're kids, their interests change. 1 week it may be watching this set of videos, now you're watching this set of videos, and just monitoring their behavior, how the videos are. And that's something that we do with Joseph, but also it's knowing your children. Like Trey said, Daisy does an amazing job shifting the creativity, where she'll bring home like paintings, markers. If you look at my table now, I have drawings everywhere. So we encourage them to draw, paint, and they go crazy with the paintings, or we try to just push that creativity, because it's something about the video game that is drawing them in, right? So as a parent, how can we recreate that in our home, but physical, right? It's something about that video game, whether it's a stage, or whether it's something that's giving them that excitement. How can you replicate that inside of your home? So that's something that we're trying to every day, work towards.
Right. That's so dope. That's so dope. And Davon said, how often are we checking the content our kids watch? So just going into what Jose's saying, like, you know, we gotta check the history. Like we gotta check and see how long they're watching these videos. We gotta see what exactly they're watching, what they're interested in, what their interests are. Nikki said, when the screens raise the children, they learn things we didn't teach them or don't want them to be exposed to. And that's another thing, like YouTube, like the way that these people are putting these like such inappropriate things or not kid-friendly things in the form of cartoons is amazing. So your child may be exposed to something that you may not be ready for them to be exposed to at this point in their life. So that's definitely a good one. Tamiko said games are set up to be addictive. Nikki also said checking social media at the red light. So again, like waking up, you checking social media, you at the red light, like, oh, I just felt my phone vibrate. It's Facebook, it's a comment or something like that, and we checking it at the light. Melissa said back when I was youngest, we didn't have all the technology. She said this is when she was younger, she didn't have all this amazing technology. And Tora said, I take my daughter's phone a lot and it drives her crazy, but it proves to her that she's good without it. And I think that that's a great thing as well. So Dominique, I have a question for you. So we grew up in the same area, and you know, we grew up together and stuff like that, and we were actually in a good place, I believe, because we actually came up when social media was kind of beginning, like before it was even social media per se, like before I had a label. You know, when you had to tie up your phone line to get on AIM, and your mom was yelling at you if she ain't like, we grew up.
Come on, AIM with the away message.
Right, you know, so and Skonex and all that. So we were like in the in-between. We were outside, we were playing, but as we got older, we were and got into those things as well. What are some things that you can remember, like as a kid, doing that kind of had your focus other than social media? Like what were some things? Because I know nowadays parents kind of feel like, well, if I don't let them watch TV or give them the game, like what are they going to do? But then when I think about it, I'm like, well, I didn't have a phone with Facebook and Instagram, and I survived. Like, and my parents definitely didn't have that, and they survived. Like, you know, they 1 year old survived without a tablet. So like, what are some things that like maybe as you know, your field of work that you recommend to parents, or maybe something that you just remember as a kid, like, you know, as a healthy alternative to screen time?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me, because the next thing I was going to say is, you know, the article is talking about if a child is overstimulated, and I think that's a key point, because some people feel like we're saying, well, completely take away, you know, phones and TVs and things of that nature, and that's not true. There are some very educational things on TV shows, and you know, there are a lot of things that you can have your children watch. So there's like a kind of, now, it's very textbook. So this is for legit the perfect child. So don't necessarily follow it. Like, don't look at it and be like, oh my God, my child didn't do that, so that means there's something wrong with my child. No, everyone develops in their own way. But there's this general kind of, you know, conceptualized idea of kind of developmental stages in children going upwards. And they used to create, well, no, they still do, create toys that kind of help activate certain things that are being developed along the way, right? So you'll see, like, when they're really little, they may have like a really squishy toy, but then when they get to like 2, 3, now you're trying to get them to sort things and color coordinate things, and it kind of matches the developmental stage that they're going through, and it's the same thing. So when you're looking at us who were growing up, who, you know, social media was just coming out, but we were probably like middle school, high school type of situations, you know, maybe then the TV time could have been maybe whatever, because again, your brain has developed a little bit more than when you were 5, 6, 7. So I think that it's really big to understand that it's saying overstimulated. So when we say overstimulated, meaning, is this something that is causing you to be so dependent that without it, you literally feel like you cannot survive? And that's for anybody. That is for children when it comes to games. That is for, we use the example of gambling, but we don't realize that it triggers something. It triggers a hormone that is released in the brain. Video games, like Cami said, they work with psychologists because there's this thing which is very real when it comes to trauma. There is this thing called fight and flight, and I know we hear it and we kind of throw it out sometimes, but there's this hormone that kind of releases when you are kind of engaging with things that seem stressful, and when you are using this video game, a TV show, or whatever as a way of coping and kind of escaping your reality, because most of the time that's what coping is, right? We're trying to kind of find a way to deal with it, which is usually not dealing with it. So overstimulated screen time has really become a way of avoidance. It causes a lot of kids to not be able to socialize. They can't express their feelings. They can't interact with people. They cannot self-regulate, so they cannot self-soothe themselves. They find it very hard to do those things. So I think that someone in the comments said that we didn't have a lot of this, which is true. And the thing is, we still have toys, right? So we still have dolls. Like Barbie still makes Barbie, and like these toys are still there. But for some strange reason, you know, we've come to this point where now 6-year-olds literally have to do everything that a 16-year-old is doing. And that's not necessarily true. A 6-year-old can still be a 6-year-old. They don't have to have an iPad or a tablet. Like I remember my mom used to be like, you can't have nails. You can't have nails until you like 4 friends, like, you know, hey girl. And I'm just like, dang, I can't even get the fake little clip on. So, you know, it just goes with there are many options. The clip on, she wouldn't even let me have the clip ons. Like, but this just goes to show that, again, if there is a way your brain is developing, then parenting can match that. We can match that at this age. They're just learning how to build friendships. They're just learning how to tap into emotion. They're just learning how to use logic. Like, do you not realize, like, when we're in school, you ever notice in elementary school, we learn multiplication and addition and all these different things, but we learn them by memory, like memory. So it's not really that we understand the concept of adding or multiplying. We just know that our teacher said 2 + 2 is 4, so 2 + 2 is 4. But then when you get to middle school and high school, you're starting to now realize that, oh, multiplication ain't nothing but adding and adding and adding and adding. So there's a point where now you have to kind of find the balance of, they're no longer just going off of memory, but now they're going into logic and reasoning. And then your parenting may have to, you know, step up a little bit. You may have to be on top of them. You know, they may not be able to get an iPad at 4 years old, you know.
Right.
Hard, but
it's rough. You know, it's rough because it's what we're used to. Like, we're used to being able to just say, like, that's the norm. Like, and everybody kid has it. Like, so I know, like, even for me, you know, I had a conversation with my sister, and my nephew is like an extension of my family. Like, there's nothing that I would get for my kids and not get my nephew. And I remember at one point, like, my sister, she had him like how we were when we were little, like no games on the weekdays. Like, you know, like he could not play games at all at no day. If it was Monday through Friday before school, like that was it. Like no games, no. And like for me, it was like, nah, like, you can't do that. Like all the other kids is playing games. Like he gonna feel left out when he goes to school, and they all talking about how they was just playing together and stuff like that. And you know, I thought that, you know, she was doing a disservice, and you could always feel like that because all the other kids are doing it, right? But we can't be sucked in as parents because everybody is overstimulating their child to overstimulate our child. Like, you know, and that doesn't mean that again, I'm not saying not to let him play on the weekday. You know, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just using that as an example to say, like, you know, for me, I felt like we were doing him a disservice by not allowing him to do what the other kids were doing. But if it's not right, it's not right. Like, so, you know, at the end of the day, like, and like, you know, just to piggyback off of what Dominique said, we have to, like, I want to make sure, again, because we talked a lot about screen time and reducing screen time and what it can do, but I do want to make the point that she made, that we're talking about overstimulation and avoiding overstimulation, right? That's what we want to do. If your child is overstimulated, we want to give different scenarios that may be able to shed light to the fact that your child may be, his brain may be, his or her brain may be overstimulated. And if your child isn't, we want to make sure that we don't have them be over overstimulated. Again, not that TV is bad but these are things that we got to look into. Like, so I want to make sure I saw some really good comments, so I want to make sure that I go into those. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm gonna go. So Melissa said, we used to go outside and play. We made up games, played double dutch,
Come
hopscotch.
on, use your imagination.
Right? We had to be in before the sun went down. Nowadays, kids don't want to go outside because they're on technology majority of the time, all day and night, and missing out on getting their minds stimulated fundamentally. So I think that that's really good. Tora said, I'm not sure if y'all touched on this, but you definitely have to watch them in these games because there's creepy adults in these games, in parentheses, Roblox, trying to be social with our children. And I had to explain to my daughter that if you don't personally know them, you don't play with them or talk to them. So I want to make sure that we address that right now, because as a parent, I think that like that's one of our biggest fears. Growing up, I seen Law and Order, and you know, they be in all the creeps and all that. You know, that was one of the things that my parents told us, or I should say our parents told us in the beginning of the social media stage, where they had like chat rooms and stuff like that. And my parents were really big on that, like people posing as, you know, somebody that they're not. So Cam, what do you think are some things that that we can do with our children to make sure that our children have that trust in us to say like, yo, listen, you know, don't, you know, make sure that you're not adding these people, make sure you're not talking to these people, because when you're on the game, it's like an alternate reality. Everybody feels like your friend, like everybody feels like you know them. And these people that are like this, they know what to say and what to do. So, you know, what are some things that you think can be done besides telling your kid not to do these things that we can do to make sure that, you know, we're on top of that?
So honestly, just from observation and my own experiences, I think when it comes to some things like that, the best thing you can do is explain it to them. Because I feel like a lot of times some people will be quick to just tell a kid, no, don't do it, and just leave it at that. But I feel like when you really take the time to explain to them why, then they can kind of use the judgment that they have at whatever age they are to kind of put two and two together and make it make sense. And I think sometimes when kids have a reason or understanding of why, it also helps them to remember. Because I think, especially right now, I feel like this example for VR, it's so easy to be in the middle of a game, and if another kid says, "Oh, what's your name?" or "Where do you live?" or whatever, they can so easily just say, "Oh," and just blurt it out, not even thinking. But I think if you really instill in them like the reasoning behind it, they'll think twice about it.
I definitely agree, and Jose and Daisy being parents, and I know for me that this is a scary topic. Not that the topic itself scares me, but just the thought of somebody being able to infiltrate, you know, what I'm telling my kid, or my kid, you know, giving up my address or something like that, like, you know, to a complete stranger. Like, what are some things that you guys do with your children to kind of make sure that you guys don't fall, or that they don't fall into things like that?
I'm scared of all that. I've watched a lot of Criminal Minds, so I'm very traumatized of what I've seen, and I try to I talk to the kids. I'm very honest with them. Even when they were younger, I told them about if they don't know the person, they shouldn't talk, and then that there's bad people in the world, and there's people that do bad things to anyone. I'm always seeing them. I don't like lying to them, and I don't like sugarcoating it, anything. I just like being very blunt with them. They understand. I try to make them understand as how old they are, try to put it in their, how they would understand it. So far, nothing that I've seen or he's told me, but if something does or something bad comes across anything with both of them, they tell us. or they tell me, I'm very cautious, and I tell them to be cautious. And it's
Yeah, I mean, as a
yeah.
parent, it's very scary. You know, it's a scary thing because you're allowing someone to have access to your child. And, you know, as a parent, there's nothing more precious than your child. So, you know, with our kids, they're very, very honest. And again, we had the conversation with them, and it's all about knowing your child, right? That's another thing as well. You know, when is it the right time to have a conversation? It depends on where your child is at and how to relate it to them, like Daisy said. So you have to relate it, right? I could explain something to you, but explaining it to a 5-year-old and 4-year-old, how do I make a comparison so that their brain can understand that's not good, right? So, you know, whether it's using a school analogy or even a video game analogy. So, you know, the same things the very same things that can be harmful for them can be helpful for them. Because that's kind of the language that they're speaking, that they understand. You know, like in a you know, with my son, I tell him in these video games that, you know, it's just a game and it's not real, but, you know, there's things that you could do in a video game that's not safe. And my son knows this, you know, like my son will play a game and he knows that he can't go outside and do that, but it's having that conversation with them and trying to get them to understand. And then, so you want to be honest and you don't want your child to hide something from you, right? So if I say I'm gonna take the game away from you because I want to take the game away from you, they're kids, we all been kids. Our parents told us something, and the more they told us no, the more we wanted to rebel. It's just, I feel like this is like human nature. For some reason, sometimes something tells you no, and for whatever reason it is, you just want to do it because you have a passion for it, right? So you want to have that line of communication, even though they're 4 and 5. You know, it just speaks to the world we live in. You know, like my parent didn't have to have a conversation with me when I was 5, 6, 7 years old about online gaming or online services or PC gaming. You know, that's becoming a big thing as well too. You know, you have 8, 9-year-olds asking for computers and want to play these computer games and all these other things. So, you know, unfortunately, the times we live in, we have to have these conversations. And I feel like, you know, yeah, they're young, but it's good to let them know, they be honest. So if they go out in the world and, you know, something happens, they're prepared and they'll tell us. You know, if something happens to my son, and it could be anything, he's all day telling me something. And that's what you want as a parent, because, you know, you may not be there every single second, and you want to make sure that, you know, as a parent, you're doing your best to make sure that your kids are aware of what's going on.
Right. I know that was one of the things that my mom was really big on with us growing up. You know, she always told us, you know, if you have a question, ask me first before you ask somebody else, because I'm going to tell you the truth. Like I don't want you to ask somebody on the street. I don't want you to ask one of your friends, because they're going to tell you what they think that they know, and they don't know as much as they think they know. So even when our kids are socializing online, just to get a little off topic, you know, as far as like them indulging in screen time, but when we look at what they're doing when they're online and they're socializing with these people, that could possibly be a predator, or possibly just be a regular, you know, kid their age or a little older, a little younger. And kids start talking. They start hearing things about maybe adult topics that they shouldn't know, and they think they know, but they don't really know. And now they're telling your kid this is what it is. And for some reason, your kid has that amount of trust in them to believe what they say. So, you know, my mom was always like, don't listen to a kid. You ask me, I'll confirm or deny. I'll tell you the God honest truth, because I don't want you to be walking around with the wrong information, because that information could be detrimental to you. So, you know, I want to make sure that you have, you know, the correct information, or whatever that is. Like, so Dominique, when you look at the way that kids socialize today, and of course, a lot of things that they do has to be online, you know, just because of everything that's going on with COVID and things of that sort. How often do you see, you know, children that are able to be in a social setting actually want to socialize with people face to face? Because it seems like that's even for adults. I'm not even, let me not even say children, because I've seen plenty of times where, you know, I'll see a bunch of people at a birthday gathering prior to COVID, and you'll see a bunch of people at a birthday gathering, and someone's taking a video. This particular video that I'm watching is somebody taking a video of maybe a cake, and then all 17 people have their phone out. Like all 17, 20, 100 people, that like everybody has their phone out. Like, so how often do you see people that like where they want to socialize more online than they actually want to in person? And do you think that the cause of that is hyperarousal?
So I think Jose kind of said it. Whenever we're told not to do something or we can't do something, there's something in our brain that's just like, oh, but I want to do it now. So like all most kids, and I'm not saying all, but most kids, they were over school, right? I'm over this. I'm done. Like, why we got to go to school? Then it's virtual and you got to stay home and you're like, well, dang, you start to really see like, oh, there's a benefit of getting out the house and not being with mom and not being with dad and a lot of different things that were very helpful for them, a way of escape that they probably took for granted. And I think that's just, again, people in general, we tend to take for granted a lot of things that are kind of just in our face all the time, and we feel like they're not going anywhere and these things can't happen, and then they happen. So I think number one, I think that that just off the strength of them not being able to actually be in school or just being told like, this is something you can't do. Oh, but you can't tell me what to do. Like, I want to be in school. So I think that, you have those section of kids. And then you have some who genuinely just don't like school. Like they're introverts. They don't want to talk to anyone. They feel like they can do things better, on screen. And a lot of them, especially, I don't know if anyone watching has anyone that is like any children that are autistic, or on any form of the spectrum. But a lot of the clients that I have that are autistic, they want to be in front of the screen. They find it easier because, again, they don't have to socialize. They don't feel the pressure of how do I look today, or how is this what I'm doing awkward, like that pressure. Because a lot of times that's, I don't know about y'all, but when I first went to school, that first day of school was like a lot of pressure. Like, you got to make sure you got to
Right.
make sure
You
you
gotta make
look
sure your
good. Like,
fit correct. Mommy
yeah,
didn't even give me the
right,
Nikes I
right.
wanted. She got me the
You
Nikes I wanted,
know,
the Jordans. Like,
exactly. Like, mom, why you did that? Like, so, it's a lot of different things. Even coming on here, right? Like, look. Like, I got one pigtail upside. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just come with like, oh my gosh, how do I look? How do I this? And we're doing this as adults. Now, just imagine children who are, and I know Cami could probably, touch on more, but we know that TV, games, technology, anything of that sort has kind of it's been used to push messages and agendas. And we know that. Come on, we watch the news. We know that. So because of that, you kind of have to be mindful, because if they want this certain toy to be out by Christmas and they want it to be sold, they're gonna make sure every chance they get, they reach you. Every commercial is gonna be this toy, this is gonna be this game, it's gonna be something, and they do this to push this agenda or this message. So I think that when we look at kids that are enjoying being at home, being in front of a screen, I think that you have those sections. So again, all children are different. This is not to say that any specific child will like anything that I'm saying, but you have to know your child. And the only way to know your child is to legit spend time with them, get to know them. And if you're pushing them in front of a screen, sometimes you kind of you miss that. You miss how to connect, and you miss how to deal and channel and just talk and express. So I think that a lot of kids are enjoying time away, but also missing it. I get a lot of kids that just, oh, I want to kill my parents. That's understood. Parents are a bit annoying, and children are too. So, I think that I get a mix of both. So there's not like one that I can say is more than the other. But I do get a bit of both. Just, I think it just depends. But again, I think it's the more you tell someone they can't do something, they tend to want to do it a little bit more. It's just something in the brain that kicks in. So, yeah.
so Cam, from a TV standpoint, as far as advertisement goes, like, is that like, I mean, we know it's a real thing, but like, do you guys like have meetings? Is there a particular department where it's like, this is commercials, we gonna push this, we pushing Barbie right now, we pushing Barbie Dream House, get Barbie Dream House pushed, right?
Absolutely. So everything Dominique was saying was 1000% on the money. So just to give you guys an example. So like I said, I work in advertising. What we do as advertisers, as TV advertisers, is I can go to a client. I'll give you an example. I can go to a local toy store, right? and I can say, you know, who are you looking to reach? And they'll tell me, oh, you know, we're really looking to push this toy that's for little girls, ages, whatever, right? What we then do is, I'm not sure if you guys realize this or not, but when you sign agreements, like cable agreements and things like that, it's in the fine print where it says that we have the right to use all this information. So what we do is we use that information. We know when your kids are watching, we know how long they're watching, we know what they're watching. Then we use third-party data companies like Experian that tell us when you swipe your credit card, how often are you buying your kids toys? How often are you buying snacks, things like that. So we can kind of get an idea of your habits, your spending habits. We put those two things together and we know exactly how to reach your children, which it kind of sounds illegal, it might be, but that's what they do. So you're right, your kids are being targeted 1000%. They're being targeted. And another thing I'll say is, and there is a difference sometimes between, you know, TV, cable TV, broadcast TV, and what they're watching on Hulu, because I'll tell clients all the time, like, look, we can't protect your brand if you want to advertise on YouTube. We have no control over it. YouTube can put your brand in between anything, which means that your kids can see anything. They don't have control over what people upload. So yes, very targeted, and it's the media is powerful. Media is very powerful, and it can be dangerous.
I mean, I know for me, that really, like, you know how you kind of feel like you know something up, but then when you kind of find out, like, yo, that's like my credit card swipe, like,
Right, like I'm feeling some type of.
I was at Toys R Us last week, like, you gotta be kidding me, like that, like it's just so crazy, but now, like, again, as not even as parents, but just as consumers, like when you look at things and you like, wait a, like the world, these big brands are really targeting us to see what we're interested in, what if they can see at, you know, whatever the particular company is, like what we're buying, to put those things in our face. Now, for me, having managed a few different businesses, I know, like, from a retail standpoint, like in store, they have places or different positions in the store where they would refer to it as impulse buys, like, you know, put this here or pair this with this, you know, so we can get them to just snatch that. And, you know, like, you'll have the chips right here, and it just always seems like there's a cooler with soda in it right next to wherever the chips is at. You ain't even want no soda, but once you grab these chips, here go the soda. Like, you get what I'm saying? And it's sort of the same thing where, like, they know what our kids are watching, whether it's YouTube, TV, and all of these things, and now they're putting it in our kids' face. Now 3 a.m. in the morning, your kid knocking on your door like, I need the new Pokemon game. You like, bro, how do you even know that game came out? Like, what just how did you know that? Like, but they know your kid watching Pokemon videos from sun up to sundown. So it's just crazy to see, like, how they're targeting us. And as parents, this is the reason why we have to be on top of these things, because they're being targeted. So Alicia Phil said they don't, in regards to the communications, she said they don't. They be off to the side on their phones. They feel more comfortable without actually interacting, but want to interact. So, you know, I think that's so true. Like, I think that went into what, you know, Dominique was saying, like, kids having to want to interact, but maybe not actually want to, you know, interact. And Nikki said that's how all the advertisement come up when they look up something and it's on your Facebook. If that's not the truth, like, I feel like me and Jose was just talking about this the other day, where I think we were talking about something in particular. I forgot what we were talking about, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, it just came up on the face. Now, I'm not saying they got our mic, you know, hacked or something crazy like that, but it's just so crazy how, like, you know, you could be researching something and the next, you know, you see an ads for it on your Facebook. So I definitely think that's true. And then Princess said, wow, I thought the Feds was tapping my line. It all makes sense now. So definitely, like, you know, at this point, you know, definitely. So We went a little bit over time because we started a little late, but I just want to get into the conclusion and really hone in on screen time, your child being overstimulated. So again, a big emphasis on overstimulated. Not that your kid can't watch TV, not that they can't go on their laptop or tablet or their game, but you don't want your child to be overstimulated. Once your child is overstimulated, their brains are still developing. It won't be healthy for them growing up as adults, and they may begin to exhibit certain behaviors that may not be, productive for them. So what the author of this particular article suggested was a fast. She called it a screen fast, where she said if your child is addicted, she suggested a screen fast from about 3 weeks to a month, depending on the severity of it. Again, like Dominique has said repeatedly, each child is different. They develop different. They think different, just like all of us are different. So the time may need to be longer or shorter. Jose said earlier he took his child's game away 2 weeks ago and he forgot about it. Like, you get what I'm saying? So he obviously doesn't need a whole month. But you may have a kid that may need a whole month. But the author suggests if your child is overstimulated and is experiencing hyperarousal in their brain, that fasting is the best option. Well, when I say fasting, let me say screen fasting. I don't want nobody to say they put their child on a diet or nothing. Screen fasting is the best thing for your child, the author suggests. And with that fasting, she says that what it does is it resets the brain. It gives the brain a chance to calm down. And then also when we look at brains being hyper aroused in our first topic or subtopic, I should say, about your child being revved up. We definitely in this day and age have to be very careful about overstimulation, hyperarousal of the brain, because what your child is watching may be going 1,000 miles per hour. But I promise you, when they sit in front of that screen, that teacher is not moving 1,000 miles an hour. So your child may sit in front of that screen and fall asleep and not be tired. And you shaking your kid up like, yo, didn't I tell you to go to sleep at? And they might have went to sleep at, but it can't keep their attention, like to Dominique's point earlier. Like it won't, like they hear it, but it's just not grabbing it because their brain is in a different place. So this is what the author suggests. It may work for you, it may not work for you, but the author suggests a fast. I know, like, let's say, for example, with Jose and Daisy, they actually showed me a very good feature on the Nintendo Switch. I think a lot of the other games have them, but I know with Nintendo Switch, if you download an app, you can actually put a limit on how much your child plays each day. So if you put an hour, when your child picks up that Nintendo Switch, there is a timer at the top of that. When that hour go up, that shut down. That's it. It's done. And when Jose showed that to me, I was like, wait, what? It shut? He was like, no, watch it. And they count down, and it just, that's it, lock. No matter what he do, it won't open until either he opens it from the app or the next day, once the next day starts. And the time can be broken up. So it's not like he only has an hour if he doesn't use like he can do 10 minutes. But that was just something that they did. Like, hey, listen, we don't want him playing this game all day. We need him to be cognitive and be able to do different things and be creative. So they put limits on it. I know on YouTube, you can do certain things like that in the sense of parental controls. So in my own personal opinion to you guys, that's something that as a parent, or if you're a guardian or just somebody who's in a position to help a child or thinks that your child may be at risk of being overstimulated, look into parental controls. Like, you'll be surprised how much stuff you can do on these video games, how much stuff you'll be able to see from your phone. Like, if you don't want to keep grabbing the game, grabbing the phone to check and see what they're watching, what they're doing. There are a lot of different things that helps us as parents because of a lot of things that have been going on. So I think that that's something that's vital for us, is to just check into that. Just check into that at all times. So, that's what the author suggests. I really hope that anyone who heard this, like, I really hope that this helped you. I know for me as a parent, listening to all of you guys, you know, whether it was, you know, Dominique or Cam or Jose and Daisy, like all of you guys said so many different things that helped me, like as a parent, like today, like change my perspective on a lot of different things. So I feel like that I grew from this conversation as an individual, and that I can take this information and not just apply it with my children, but with, you know, my nieces and nephews and cousins, and even to myself. Like some of this stuff applies to me, you know, so even myself. So I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this and making this such an enjoyable experience, because I feel like I learned, you know, so much, you know, just in general. So let's just go down the line. Dominique, did you have anything that you wanted to say, you know, any last remarks before we ended today's episode?
I just know that I'm about to be making sure I read that fine print when I watch Hulu or Netflix or anybody because y'all know too much. Like y'all know too much of my business and it's a problem. But other than that, everything has been good. I just like you said, overstimulation. So again, just have a good balance. You know, it's a good balance. Give them other options. Like a lot of them only use the TV or game as a coping mechanism because they don't know anything else. They're not open to anything else. So yeah, like Jose said, put some paint in front of them, put some music in front of them, challenge them. Don't just give them one thing and just, run with it. That, you'll be surprised as how much, if you motivate them enough, they'll actually be like, oh, well, maybe I do like cooking, or maybe I do like sewing. You just got to keep them open to it. So I'll just say that.
Dope. And Cam, anything that you want to say to the people?
Yeah, they're watching you. But outside of that, I feel like one thing that I've learned tonight is the signs, like some of the warning signs to look out for, and how you can easily mistake them for other things. So I think that's gonna help me, when I'm around kids, to be able to point it out and kind of help educate other people about this, because before Quan brought this to